Kids, come here a minute. I got a good thing for you.
I'm back. Okay, so now that I've moved that tape over here, it's not in the middle where I'm going to be doing my operation. My next operation is going to be taking these flat nose pliers and trying to find what I consider to be the very middle. And what we're going to do is we're going to, guess on what the very middle is. And this is one of those no return sort of things. So we sort of guess where it's going to be, and you're going to kind of need some experience to know where this is, and it's very important that you get this right. But right in the middle, we're going to bend. And you may want to come up and look at it and say, hey, where am I making that bend? Well, that's a little bit more over the middle than I thought, or if that's just right, then continue to make your bend. But if the whole thing is wrapped, you won't get a whole lot of twisting on you when you bend that up. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to bend that up, and then we're going to kind of bend this whole thing back a little bit. You can bend wire. They're really bendy. It's forgiving. Don't bend wire back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Or what will happen is you'll create a kink, and that kink will snap right off. It's important to know that. Okay, I'm just mentioning that. Again, sorry about the focus. Sorry about the being in and out of the picture, but doing my best here. Never done this before. So I wish I had a YouTube channel or something, and I'd be really good at this, but I don't. So we're going to try to figure out where our next bend is going to be, because it's got to be right in the middle where you just have it. So get the next pair of pliers in there, right where it should. You think that bend is going to be, and execute a square 90-degree bend right at the top, and then get that wire out of there. Then see how you did. If it looks like this, then you kind of did okay. All right, this is not perfect. Okay, I could have got this much closer to the stone. Now this is 18 gauge wire. It's not like I can bend it back a whole lot. I might have some freedom to bend a little bit back, a little bit more, but don't get too crazy with this going back and forth business, because as I just mentioned to you, if you do too many bends, you will end up breaking the wire in half. It will sever. So what you want is you want them to meet as tightly or closely to the top of the rock as possible, because that's where you're going to make your next wrap, is at the very top. Okay, next step. So what have I done? I have taken the tops and separated one wire from the back of the stone, not from the front, from the back of the stone, separated one wire on each side for the bail. In addition to that, to separating one wire for the bail, I've also separated another wire, which I'm going to use as the wrapping wire. And that'll become apparent in a minute why I did that. And then I rebound the remaining wires together. And what we're going to do now is we're going to form the bail. And this is probably the most difficult, from what I understand, talking to people online, talking to people that I've met that do this. Probably the most difficult thing to do is form the bail. And what you kind of want to do is you kind of want to keep these other wires that you've got together, the ones that are not going to be part of the bail, you want to keep them out of the experiment. So what I'll do is I'll make sure that they're together. I'm just going to keep them in a group down here at the bottom for right now. I'm going to undo this in a minute. But all I did is take those two sides, the left side and the right, the side with the 3, the side with the 2, and just put them together out of the way. I don't want them in the way when I form the bail. And this one piece right here that's kind of all by itself, because these two wires right here are going to form the bail, which is this piece right here. So we're going to use a special tool to form the bail, which is a wire wrapping specialty tool. In my case, I just got this. It's probably not necessary. If you've got a pair of round nose pliers like this, again, this is 18 gauge wire. You can start bending things in circles. If that's what you're looking for, is you're looking to bend a circle around this top part. Okay, I'm back. Sorry, I had to put different jaws on the pliers. But effectively, what we're going to do is we're going to hold those two parallel together, and we're going to start bending them in the fashion that we want. I know it's me, and I know I'm using it wrong. I know I'm doing it wrong, but it doesn't help me. It doesn't help me to know that. I mean, so you're getting this back into the frame of the camera. You're either going to do it by hand, or you're going to do it by twisting the wires with the tool. And you kind of want to get it to a place where it kind of visually looks like the bail should go. What we're going to do next is we're just going to, while this is in place, it's very important that you hold it in place, but we're going to, this is thick gauge wire that I use for this example. So again, it's far from ideal, but we're going to push this in or form this in with our hands and then kind of bend it in place. And what we're going to do is it's going to kind of have a neck shaking here, because my arms are kind of in a funny position for this camera to be in focus here. I've seen people actually use a third-party wire. I kind of like to use part of the wire that's actually part of the build. And I just think it looks, if you can pull it off, like if you pull it off, I separated it out, I'm just going to bend it back. If you can pull it off, I think it just looks neater. I mean, again, it's extremely hard the way I'm doing it, but it's also the way I was first taught. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bend this thing where I want this thing to start wrapping, and I'm going to wrap it from the top, and I'm going to wrap it down. And it's helpful if you do a couple of things. One, if you leave the pliers in there to hold the bail together, that's helpful. Number two, if you've properly wrapped the top, which I really haven't, that's helpful. But, you know, in some way or another, and some people actually get soft pliers in there to hold this whole thing together. Again, it's not ideal because you're kind of squishing everything a little bit more than you really like it to be squished, but it can get things started. And this is an 18 gauge wire, which is really, really a heavy wire. So to get this started is going to take some effort. It's an 18 gauge because it's a big rock, and it's also a subject that I wanted visibility with. So I'm wrapping it now, starting to go around, and there's no elegant way that I know to get this started, but this is the bane of most people's wire wrapping projects. Most people use a tool. Most people use a technique or a tool which can hold the bail together. It's very important that the bail doesn't split, but if this is an 18 gauge wire, it's really, really a heavy gauge wire, and it's really kind of hard to bend an 18 gauge wire out of place. So I can kind of hold it in there with my hands, but again, a lot of people, they don't. So once this thing is going together, you know, you may or you may not want to throw a little crimp on it, but at this point, I like to get the bail secured and not moving. And then I like to get in there with my cutters and cut those 2 wires that I've got coming out the bottom of the bail. I want them to be hidden. And the further up you can cut them, the better. Just make sure that when you cut, you're kind of facing the thing downward so it doesn't fly into your eye or fly into someplace across the room. So again, just kind of doing this. This is an uncomfortable position for me to cut. And then when you make the cut, just make sure it's not facing you. And then while you're holding, you can finish the wrap. This is a heavy gauge wire, so quite honestly, it's real hard to bend. But if you want to, you can use pliers to bend that around. When I come back, I'll have sanded this down. I'm going to file this down or sand this down somewhat while it's still out here. And I'm going to make it so it kind of disappears a little bit easier when I fold it around. Because I'm about to fold this back, this final piece. I'm going to fold this on here. And I just want to hide this a little bit more. Because I want to, right now it's just kind of hanging out there. So I'll come back when that's done. Okay? And again, just to let you know, again, we're an amateur. And I've only done a few dozen of these, so I am not selling these. I give these away for presents and stuff like that. But now that we've secured the top, we've kind of made it so that these wires are not going anywhere. And it's kind of important that they don't go anywhere for a little bit. So what I'm going to do is, and this probably just helps a little bit, but I'm just going to put another wrap up here to kind of enforce that these wires don't really go anyplace. What I could do is I could bend them. Some people will bend them at the top to make sure they don't go anywhere, but the reason why we don't want them to go anywhere is because we're about to do the bends on the side.